49 Central African Time. It's time for our hashtag Africa Focus features, part of the show where we look at some of the biggest stories on the African continent. And we're going to be focusing on Sudan, where the battlefield may be changing, and with it, potentially, the future of the country. The Sudanese armed forces, from the reports I'm receiving, have made gains in North Kordofan. This is very, very important because there are some reports of defections from rapid support forces, and that matters because more than 3 years of war, the balance of power on the battlefield almost looks like could determine who gets to shape Sudan's political settlement when the fighting eventually ends. But military gains usually do not necessarily translate into political legitimacy. And Sudan's war has already created one of the world's humanitarian crises. These are confirmed reports from various humanitarian organizations the world over. And we're going to be honing in on that. Is there a shift? Are we seeing some positive ground gaining from the Sudanese army? And also, what's happening within the RSF? What's happening there? I can't answer those questions, but I have someone who can. Brother Ramadan Ahmed Birima, Sudanese journalist and political analyst. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ramadan. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Salelo. Jazakallah khair for hosting me.
I mean, the pleasure is all ours. The last time you and I spoke, we were speaking about the Sudanese armed forces looking like, they've gained ground in some parts of Sudan. I think we focused on, various regions and some very, very critical infrastructure that they took over. And it looks like the trend is continuing from that conversation. I want to get it from your perspective. Are we genuinely seeing a decisive shift in favor of the Sudanese armed forces, or is it too early to describe it that way?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Yes, you are right. There is a lot of shift in the battlefield. The Sudanese army has gained a lot of ground over the last 2-3 weeks, or even on 1 month. After the capture of Bara. Bara is the nearest city to, or nearest town to the city of Al Ubayd, which is the capital of North Kordofan. So after the army has captured Bara, then the suburbs of Bara have fallen one after one, and the rapid support forces have been chased out of the region completely. While I'm talking to you now, some of them have surrendered to the army. Very good number of leaders actually have surrendered to the army. A good number of them have been killed actually in the battlefield because of the morale that has gone down because of the defeat they suffered in Bara. But the most important thing is that in this development is the amount of ammunition that was discovered in the warehouses in these areas. It is something shocking, Brother Salelo. If you can, you can't even imagine. They say around something to plus 100,000 tons of ammunition and weapons, amounting to about $1 or $2 billion. It is something amazing actually. It was the army was shocked actually. So all this was captured, and it looks like the army will then for the next 10 years won't need any kind of weapons. Yeah.
Inshallah, there'll be peace. Inshallah, there'll be peace, and then those weapons and ammunition will be in storage.
So,
I wanna come to the significance rather of the gains in northern Kordofan. Like strategically, how significant is that, and what does it give the army that it didn't have before?
Sorry, it didn't give. It does give the army the last part.
The significance of some of the gains that have been made in North Kordofan strategically. What do they give the army that it didn't have before in this war?
No, definitely, it gives a lot of advantage to the army in the sense that now the army has captured the kind of weapons that they have captured, and given the number of the RSF commanders that have surrendered, it is something that definitely strategically it works in favor of the government of the army. Now there is another group of the Sudanese army that is taking from the west, from the Chadian border, and they have captured a number of places that is not highlighted yet in the media, but they are advancing. Some of the reports have shown that some of the major commanders in the RSF have moved their families from Al Fashir and other cities in Darfur to South Sudan, meaning that they have sensed that things are not going in their favor and they have to find a way out. So this is strategically, definitely, it works in favor of the Sudanese army. Even if you look at developments internationally, it shows very clearly that the sponsors of the RSF have felt the impact of the Sudanese army's advancement in the field. That's why they came up with the meeting that was held the day before in the International Security Council, and they wanted to ban to impose a no-fly zone in Sudan. The entire country, they want to impose a no-fly zone, but the plan was actually, or the plot actually was dissolved, and they returned without empty-handed, without anything, because Russia, China, and other powerful countries stood very strongly, including Egypt and other countries. They stood very strongly against the idea of equating the Sudanese army, which represents the state of Sudan, equating it with the militia that is hardly an organized militia. It is not organized. It's not even an army that has been committing a lot of atrocities. So the equation between both sides is not acceptable at all. To the Chinese, to the Russians, and to the Turks, and to all the people who look at what is happening on in Sudan from an impartial point of view.
I wanna look at the RSF and what's happening within that grouping, because we're hearing about some really interesting developments, defections being one of them. I think it was last week. I read about I think it was 320 RSF members defecting to the army. What does that tell us about the morale, the cohesion within that grouping, and also ultimately what the future looks like for them?
No, the future is very gloomy, and the number that you stated is such, I see, an old number. It is not a recent number. Numbers are increasing every day, and a lot of them are surrendering because they have come to realize that they are not fighting a just cause, and they are being used. Some of them said it very clearly that we were bluffed and we were deceived that we were fighting a just cause, and we realized that no, that was not the case. We are just being utilized and used by some outside forces. That's why we have to decide for ourselves, and we joined the army, which represents the state of Sudan. At the moment, while I'm talking to you now, the commander of the commander of the RSF, which is who is Ahmeti, General Ahmeti has not been seen in the battlefield, and it's shocking to tell you that some of the people that saw him personally they said, no, this is not him. There is a video that was taken by some of the activists, and he was telling that a very close person to Hameti, who used to have a special connection with him. He said, when I met him and I greeted him, he just looked at me like anyone else, as if he doesn't know me. He said he's his uncle. Hameti is his uncle. And he said he used to prepare me for a very high post. And we used to have a special language between us. And whenever we meet, we speak our language. He said when I met him, he didn't say anything. So there is a lot of rumors, and these rumors are becoming very solid, and supported by evidence on the ground that this man must have died, and there is some kind of surgical operation done on somebody else to look like him, representing him, and even his voice. So this is confirmed by more than one person. I have my personal friend, who is an intelligence officer and used to be working in the office of Hemeti. He said, I met this guy in Addis Ababa, and I came and greeted him. He didn't know me, and he looked at me like he was looking at anybody else. If you look at also the fact that Hemeti used to like media so much, he would not afford not to stand and make a press conference. Just imagine someone who is a commander for about how many years now? 3-4 years now. He could not hold one press conference where the media could come and ask him questions, or even in closed doors. That didn't happen at all. And even his statements that were issued on his behalf were off point, not talking about the essential things. So there is a feeling among the commanders on the ground that this man is not there, and they are just being blocked. That's why the rate of this defection is accelerating very rapidly.
Very interesting indeed. I want to touch on a conversation that I think for a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people still grapple with the idea that the army represents Sudan's legitimate state institutions. Do you think, the success that we've been seeing in the battlefield thus far almost strengthens that political argument?
I don't think this is a political argument. This is a fact on the ground. From day one, the army has been representing Sudan, representing the people of Sudan. And frankly speaking to you, the Sudanese people have never supported any institution like how they supported the army in this war. 90% of the Sudanese people are in support of the army, with the exception of the areas that are falling under Hemeti. And these areas people cannot express their feeling openly because of being harassed, or otherwise they won't hide it. And this is evident that when the army take over a certain area, people come out in the street to celebrate the arrival of the army, which indicates that they were suppressed. There is no peace, there is no safety in the areas that are controlled by the RSF. People are suffering insecurity, and people don't own anything. People are suffering in the strict sense of the term. They are ruled by thugs, by rogues, and they could be somebody can be attacked at any time in your house, in the street, and nobody can come and protect you. So people are not feeling safe in the areas that are controlled by the RSF. And in fact, I'm reserved to say the word control, because when you say control, means that you have some kind of rule over an area. But these are the areas that RSF spreads instead of control, and still people not be able to express themselves. So these are the areas that I'm not sure, or people cannot express themselves clearly. But in the other areas, definitely the Sudanese people, even in diaspora, they support the army in a way that has never happened in history. Those people who are supporting RSF cannot even hold a press conference in an open place where they can host the journalists can come and ask them. These people cannot walk in the marketplaces. I'm not telling you. I'm not saying in Sudan. No, in
Mm,
places like Addis Ababa, like Nairobi. If the Sudanese people see them, they beat them. These are the politicians who support RSF. So there is no question about legitimacy when it comes to the armed forces. It's not political argument at all. It is a fact on the ground, and this is what Sudanese people are standing for.
mm, mm. Would it be a bit too premature to start having conversations about what post-war Sudan looks like, and what the new government of Sudan could look like after the war? What kind of political settlement the army is likely to pursue, and also what happens to the RSF's political influence if its military position continues to weaken, and can there also be a settlement that excludes its leadership completely?
The post-war area is expected to be an election after the war ends. There is some kind of political dialogue that will take place among the Sudanese political forces that have supported the army. And from that political dialogue, there is going to be arrangements so that Sudanese people could decide through the ballot box who is to rule them. This is in the long run what's going to happen. As far as the RSF is concerned, there is a Jeddah agreement, and that Jeddah agreement stipulates very clearly that RSF should come out of the areas that it has been spreading in and be gathered in certain places where they can surrender in their arms to the armed forces, and then whatever remains of their personnel, they have two options. One option is for them to be assimilated into the army, or to be disarmed and go back to their families and join their places. Those who decide, in both cases, they have to undergo some kind of rehabilitation, because the way they behaved during the war was not a normal behavior for any ordinary people, because they have become like brutes. They behaved like brutes. So now
Mm,
they need to undergo some kind of rehabilitation so that they can be assimilated, either assimilated into society or assimilated into the armed forces. But RSF is not a political organization, so it cannot be part of a political arrangement.
mm,
Now, even its political wing um, has to be questioned legally. Of course, to undergo some kind of legal screening so that they can be able to perform their rights, like ordinary Sudanese, if the law said they didn't commit anything. So this is how the future is going to be. So the country will be ruled by an institution that is elected by the Sudanese people. And I think this is the time when there is no way where somebody comes through the window to impose themselves and say, okay, I'm the prime minister or I'm the ruler or whatsoever, including Al Burhan himself, who is the commander
mm.
of the armed forces. He cannot automatically become the president of the country unless the Sudanese people say yes or no.
Mm, mm. And I think that's going to be the biggest test for Sudan. I think one thing about civil war is ultimately when it ends, there seems to be a vacuum of power that a lot of countries always seem to struggle with filling, and making sure that the country goes back to civilian rule, and things look normal again. finally, before I let you go, Ramadan, what should the international community be watching over the next few months that could tell us whether Sudan is genuinely moving towards a political settlement? Are there, little green shoes that you can point at that we need to be paying attention at?
Are you asking about the international community?
Yes, yes.
Yes, international community actually is very confused when it comes to Sudan, because there are many players, and each player has its own vested interests in Sudan, and that's why there is a confusion. There is deliberate actually confusion as far as Sudan is concerned, because sometimes they equate the army with the RSF, and then they want RSF to become part of the political arrangement and things like that. Given that the RSF has never been a political institution, it was a paramilitary institution that was supposed to be helping the army in combating certain insurgencies and things like that. It was not meant to become a political wing. But now the international players want the RSF to be a political institution, because they wanted the RSF to be used as a functional group for them to have some kind of hegemony over the resources of Sudan, but they failed thanks to the armed forces standing its ground with the support of the Sudanese people. Now, the international community is not cooperative when it comes to having some kind of elections after the end of the war, and that the Sudanese people must decide who their ruler must be. This is not what the international community is interested in. International community, and when we talk about international community, we're talking about the United States of America and its proxies in the region, which is Zionist state. So they are not interested in any kind of elections that can bring to the fore or to the leadership a leader that is supported by the nation, and whose alliance is aligned with the nation. That cannot be accepted. They need a leader whose allegiance is with them, not with the people, so that they can dictate on that leader what they want. This is one of the challenges that will be facing Sudan in the coming period.
No, most definitely. Ramadan Ahmed Birima, Sudanese journalist and political analyst. Always a pleasure, and hope we chat again soon. Salam.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with you right after this.